Hey everybody, how you doing? Steve Martirano here. A moment before we get into the nitty gritty here. Now, I got to remind you again. You will have our eternal gratitude if you just click that subscription button. We need your support in that fashion. Hit the button, subscribe. We'll love you long time here on the Behavioral Corner. Hi and welcome. I'm Steve Martirano, and this is the Behavioral Corner. You're invited to hang with us as we discuss the ways we live today, the choices we make, the things we do, and how they affect our health and well-being. So you're on the corner, the Behavioral Corner. Please hang around a while. Hey everybody, I'm Steve Martirano, and this is the Behavioral Corner. You know, I forgot to turn my light on, so since we're talking about films, lights, camera, action. Oh, I don't know if we needed that, but anyway, hi. And here we are hanging again on the Behavioral Corner, where we talk about behavioral health, which means this is a podcast about everything, because everything affects our behavioral health. And we have a good one for you today, one of my favorite series of programs we do on this program, the Movie Mavens. By the way, the whole shoot match is made possible by our great partners, Retreat Behavioral Health. And not only do they add the financial support to this effort, but more often than not, we reach out to their people, and that's who the Movie Mavens are. Shober and Maggie Hunt, two executives with Retreat Behavioral Health. They are very successful career women. They are mothers and wives and sisters, and they're just the best people on the planet. And they are here to have, we're going to have some fun with movies. We've done a couple of television programs. We're doing a couple of movies. And what we want to do is, have fun, talk about movies. But most especially what this is about is we're picking films that have something to do with substance abuse and or mental health and the treatment and how it's depicted in the film, because the ladies are experts. They are both in long-term, utterly spectacular recovery. I mean, I've told you this a million times. They have been there and done that. So their expertise and their opinion on how these movies treat these important topics, we think are worthwhile. Hi, gals. How are you?
Hi.
Doing well.
Good to see the Mavens again. And we got a good one. It was your choice to do Flight, the Denzel Washington movie. I couldn't agree more that that's a good one to tackle. Real quickly, it is it's an award-winning movie. It was voted one of the best movies of the year. It was out 2012. Directed by Robert Zemeckis. For those of you who do not know, it's a Denzel Washington movie, so that makes it a big deal right there. He is supported in the film with a couple of great people. Kelly Riley, you may know her from Yellowstone. She's all over Yellowstone now, and Don Cheadle and John Goodman, the big John Goodman from the Roseanne Show. He's got a very interesting role to play in this film. Briefly, Denzel plays a pilot for a major airline who miraculously lands an airplane that runs into mechanical difficulty and single-handedly, because of his expertise, saves most of the people on this flight and is immediately hailed a great hero. The problem is he was under the influence of drugs and alcohol, not only during that flight, but apparently he has a history of this. And so we're going to have some fun with the movie in general, but we're going to bore down into how they deal with substance abuse in this movie, Flight. It's worth seeing, by the way. It is worth seeing. Okay, guys, let's begin with the actors. It's always fun. Are you both fans of Denzel?
Yeah, I like Denzel.
Yeah.
But I also didn't realize that. I don't know why I didn't realize it. Maybe it's because it's been a long time since I've seen the movie. But I am watching Yellowstone, and I love Yellowstone. And I didn't realize that Kelly Riley. I just Googled it just now since we were talking, and I was like, "Oh my God!" I didn't realize that that's who that was. She looks so much younger in this one, probably because it was like 10 years ago. So
yeah. That and the fact that I think, and you guys would be the experts on this, I think they messed her up nicely in pursuit of trying to achieve at least the look of a woman with serious substance abuse issues. You agree, Grace? Is she scruffy enough?
Yeah, she is. Yeah, she's kind of like the stereotypical, drug addict type female.
Wow, you sound jaded. So she didn't offend either of you by the depiction of a substance abuser, did it put you off? That's not what you're saying, right?
No, it didn't put me off at all. It's just like that's what I would expect to see. For somebody cast as like a drug addict in a movie.
Well, yeah, it is. It's standard Hollywood fare. That's the way they're supposed to look. They're supposed to be pain. They're not supposed to be gorgeous. It's very difficult to take a beautiful actress and convince people she's not really beautiful, but they did a decent job with this. I thought Denzel was terrific as a guy that's going too hard on all levels. And Denzel Washington, we're going to sit here and critique Denzel Washington. That's absurd. The other characters, they are not central to what we're going to be talking about, but they're worth mentioning. Don Cheadle's a terrific actor. He plays a hard-nosed, I guess he's the lawyer for Denzel, right?
I think so.
Because what happens in the film, there's an investigation when it becomes apparent that there's something wrong with their pilot, who's a hero on the one hand, but on the other hand has been abusing substances and flying airplanes. Signature moment here before we get into the depiction of substance abuse is I don't want to spoil anything for you, but Denzel in this role of the pilot does an unbelievable maneuver on a plane that is completely uncontrollable. It has to do with turning the plane over and gliding. It's, if you're not a pilot, it wows you. If on the other hand, you have flown commercial airlines, you might have something else to say about that. Grace's brother, your brother is a pilot, Grace?
Yep.
And my brother-in-law is, and we did the same thing. We both, you said to your brother, can you do that? I said to my brother-in-law the same thing. What did your brother-in-law say about the maneuver he accomplishes to save those lives?
So I asked him, and he basically said like there is potentially a way to like save lives and not totally crash a plane completely if there's like a malfunction or something like that with a plane. But what happened in the movie in terms of like a huge plane like that, not even like a little jet or something, like going upside down and performing that maneuver is really just Hollywood.
Yeah, my brother-in-law who flies for a major airline and in fact trains pilots. I didn't even get the whole sentence out of my mouth. I said, "Did you see Flight?" And he went, "Yes." And you can't do that. He said you couldn't turn that plane over and back again. But you're right. I mean, we saw the fellow Sullenberger land an airplane on the Hudson River and save everybody's life. So these guys are good. Yeah. They are good. I hate scenes like when I find out there's a plane crash in a movie, I go in gingerly. I don't want to see what goes on inside of an airplane when something bad is happening. You know what I mean, Grace?
Mm-hmm. Yes, she knows what you mean because Grace also hates flying. So we should be hold hands.
We do, because I honestly think every time that this is it.
Are both of you reluctant flyers?
No, I'm fine.
Yeah, Mags doesn't care. She's like, oh yeah, it's shaking. Like if it goes down, it goes down. But like, just close your eyes. I'm just like, oh my God.
Wow. There you go. Advice from Maggie Hunt for fear of flying. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
I'm just like, no, I think like a healthy, obviously, but I think that I go back on when they say something like you're more likely to get into a car accident and get killed than you are. I just kind of go with that because it's more comforting.
Yeah. We could do a whole show on conquering phobias in terms of mental health stuff. But I hear you. You're 30 times more likely to die on a highway than you are in an airplane. The problem with thinking that as the plane is like bouncing around is that you're not on a highway, you're in a damn airplane. Now the odds don't count.
Right.
I'm 100% sure I'm in an airplane. Right.
Yep.
So anyway, it's terrifying and it scares the bejesus out of me every time I think of it. But I'm a good flyer. I don't care. I'm sort of like Mag. Just what the hell? Let's go jump on a plane and go someplace. And it's just great. It's Denzel Washington. Robert Zemeckis is a great director. It's, you're on the edge of the seat. He's obviously a hero. But now he's got to face a very serious hearing when issues arise as to his substance abuse, which the audience is already aware of. We see him getting high at the beginning of the movie. He's a wreck. Somehow or another that goes unnoticed by his bosses, but it doesn't at this point. So he has to defend himself. He has to get into rehab. and that's where he meets Kelly Riley. And this is where our main focus is, and why we appreciate the Mavens' time to talk to us about what they saw and what they thought about that. How did that strike you? You know, he was very reluctant about doing this. He was doing it to save his job, but I don't think he really embraced how messed up he was. Is that the way you felt about it, Grace? Did they get that right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I was always one of those people that like hated to go to treatment. Like people, you know, they were like bribing me. My dad like took me to dye my hair purple before I went to treatment because it was the only way I would go. Like the whole nine. I was just like, no, I'm not, you know, it wasn't something I was into. But, you know, I think the fact that he went to like save something like face, whether that's his job or whatever, it's kind of that's how it goes. We see a lot of people that come in just because, you know, they have to from an ultimatum, whether it's a job or a family member or something like that.
Yeah, or you know, you're compelled by the courts to do that.
Yeah, the legal system.
Maggie, did they get it right as far as you're concerned?
Well, I think the most shocking thing for me also about the movie was that they did not talk about addiction at all in the previews. So I was totally caught off guard when I went to go see it. Cause like my mom and I went to go see it. And we just thought we were going to see like a cool new Denzel Washington movie. And I was newly sober, not newly sober around this time, but like, you know, like newly-ish sober. And I was like, I can't believe this is what we're watching right
You
now.
know, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I have been saying that all along. My immediate reaction when it occurred to me what I was watching is that the marketing people had misled the hell out of us.
Mhm.
This was a Denzel Washington to the rescue movie, right?
Yep.
And
You're like, oh, he's going to be a hero. And you have
yeah,
no idea anything else about like that he's what's about to happen, which I was fine with. And I do think they did a good job.
yeah. No, I think I know what these guys. We can't sell Denzel. We can't. We can show him as a a substance abuser, but we can't sell the movie like that. And I don't want to. You know, it's Denzel Washington, which is really ridiculous because he's an actor, right? But you say you were okay with it. Can you imagine a situation where someone is newly in recovery that goes to see a Denzel Washington movie and it's about substance abuse and it being a problem for them?
Yeah. You know, I think that he's also the perfect example of somebody who is like, oh, I don't drink at work, like I don't drink on the job, but like you come into work at 5 a.m. or, you know, after, or you know, you stopped drinking at 5 a.m., came to work at 7 a.m. Like people hold on to that delusion pretty regularly that like, and justify their behavior by being like, oh, well, I'm not like affecting anything at work and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not drinking on the job. But like, it's the same thing, whether you you know, like, unless you have like a clear mind and body, like you're under the influence.
Yeah.
And it just so happens for him that, you know, he has this significant job that, you know, is putting people at risk, and something happened, you know, through no fault of his own. And then he had to fix it, but it doesn't matter that, you know, the one time.
You know, Grace, were you taken by surprise at the actual nature of this movie?
Yeah, I was, because just like Maggie said, like I didn't know, you know, I just watched it. At the time, it didn't really, I mean, I wasn't sober at the time that I watched the movie. But at the same time, I think what's great about it is, unlike, and we all know about like my disdain for Euphoria, but unlike Euphoria, it's not like glamorized really at all, except for like that minuscule part that we all thought the whole thing was going to be about, like we had said, where he's like a hero and all that. That's like super short lived. And then it's like all the consequences that follow. So, I mean, I think even if you go and watch it, it might be like there's like certain scenes where you're just like, or maybe you're a little cringeworthy, but there's nothing that's like super glamorizing about it.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's true. And we when we meet the character of Denzel Washington's playing, he's already a wreck. I mean, we don't know that he can't do his job, but he's a mess. Mm-hmm. He's fighting with his wife on the phone. He's in the room with the woman. I think he does some cocaine in that scene as well. So we know he's not a Boy Scout to begin with. This point, though, about his substance abuse and his role as a pilot and his ability to just miraculously manage the situation, while we know he's a wreck. We know he, as Maggie just said, doesn't make any difference if he got high that morning. he's an abuser and he's got problems. But in a moment of existential threat, he's able to do these things. Did either of you find that what they were trying to do was convince us that under some circumstances, the true person will be able to emerge no matter how many drugs they're abusing? I mean, they were trying to make that point, weren't they?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I was just gonna say, I think that they like were also trying to take over like some of the dysfunctional beliefs and the, you know, the way that he was managing his emotions on top of his drinking to kind of like portray the whole person a little bit.
Yeah, and I think the way that I like kind of look at it or take it is like Maggie said, it's a delusion that you're able to do like basically anything, you know, if you're on substances, but also the fact that like when you're in addiction, alcoholism so deeply that you actually need, if you aren't physically detoxed, you actually need these substances to function. Because my thought is that if he was like stone cold sober and like was kind of going through it a little bit, he wouldn't have been able to do what he did in the movie. Like it's almost like
Good point, Grace.
because he wasn't physically detoxed. It's not like he was just like me or Maggie or like somebody else like who's in like recovery and you aren't on a substance to function. I think in that moment he actually needed to be on something to be able to function at all, which I think is kind of how I took it.
It's a very complicated issue. It really is. But again, since we all agree the marketing sort of blindsided us, we had to start playing catch up right away and say, well, okay, this is about substance abuse, and put that other stuff on the side. But it is an interesting, you know, at that moment when his life and everyone else's life depends upon him cutting through whatever substance abuse problems he's having, he does it. He actually does it. Did you think the character did a good job? Because afterwards he seems to think that's a defense for his behavior. Like, why are you bothering me about what I do? I just flew the airplane and saved everybody. Maggie, did you get a sense that they were trying to, at least the character was trying to make that argument? And does it resonate among substance abusers in general, going, hey, I'm handling it?
100%. I literally just had a situation with a very close family member who, you know, it's almost like addicts and alcoholics want to be like, oh, I did everything, but I was doing everything right, but, and it's like, I understand all of those things, but that one but is like, like really significant. So I think that they tried to do that a lot through the movie, and try to fight that argument that I don't know what the word is for
it's
it.
It's a monstrous
yeah.
rationalization. I mean, to sum it up in kind of a metaphor, substance abusers' lives are in disarray and being destroyed, and everyone else around them is being destroyed. And they are, metaphorically speaking, a plane that's hurling itself into the ground, right? And in this movie, that character seems to be telling the audience, yeah, but I landed the plane.
Yep.
Grace, you agree? That what they were doing?
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. I do also think that he tried to rationalize it, and the movie kind of depicted how he rationalized it more with like, they didn't touch a whole lot on his substance use. They touched on like her substance use, but they touched on like his alcoholism and how like alcohol's legal and like why can't, you know. So I think that there was a lot of, they were like making, you know, they were trying to like rationalize things in like different ways.
Yeah, guys, I so appreciate your perspective on this, because the only value I think we're getting out of the Maven series is that you take a look at how movies are made when they're made about important topics. I mean, if they're doing a dinosaur movie, who cares, right? When they're touching upon stuff that matters, you can see, if you look closely, how Hollywood gets in the way. You know, they can't show us Denzel Washington for an hour and 45 minutes as a loser. They could do it, you know, for 15 minutes, but they got to make him kind of heroic. I think that was, for me, what was wrong with this thing. Mag, what do you think?
Well, I was just thinking also too about how in in a 12-step fellowship, there's this thing called the bedevilments, and in the bedevilments, they ask some questions, and I just want to ask these questions really quick because I think that this is what like that. So if somebody's not sure whether or not they're an addict or an alcoholic, I usually ask them these questions because these questions don't necessarily pertain to like how much you're drinking, how often you're drinking, what you're using, all those things. So it says we were having trouble with personal relationships. We could, and he had that like estranged family. Like his son was like, being like, I hate, in one of the scenes, like when he went back to visit his son was like, I hate, like they didn't have a good relationship. We couldn't control our emotional natures. We were a prey to misery and depression. We couldn't make a living. We had a feeling of uselessness. We were full of fear. We were unhappy. We couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. Was not a basic solution of these benevolence more important than whether or not we should see, and then it goes into this whole other thing. But so basically it's saying, like it's asking us like, so these are the questions that like would identify somebody as an addict and alcoholic, not so much how much or how little you are drinking or using or any of those things. But it's like, he was having trouble with his personal relationships. He couldn't control his emotional natures. The we couldn't make a living is not so black and white in the sense of like, well, you just had a situation where like you're not really, your job is in jeopardy, feeling of uselessness, full of fear, unhappy, like, so all of those things. But and so I do think that they portrayed that and I think that they portrayed the struggle that he had throughout that movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I agree. I don't know that they, their goal is to make an entertaining movie.
Right.
And so you got to be a little careful about preaching and all of that. So let me, Grace, you mentioned that, and you're right, I believe that they paid less attention to his substance abuse or alcohol problems and more on her and her struggle. Did they do a better job with her?
Oh yeah, I mean, like I think here's what they did. I think what they tried to do is like this is somebody who in terms of the female, this is somebody who's like in and out of treatment. This is somebody who's like overdosed. She's kind of like got no family, like the whole nine. And she's using heroin. And then we have like a successful guy who's a pilot who, still has money and like all that kind of stuff. And his thing is alcohol. So they're like almost like, okay, well, heroin, it almost felt like heroin is worse than alcohol, but at the end of the whole thing, you're looking at it, you're like, alcohol, while legal, and while we're making all these rationalities for it, is just as dangerous, if not more dangerous at times than heroin. And that's, so I think they did like I think they did a pretty good job in like switching up the roles in terms of like, okay, she was really, really bad. He was pretty bad. You saw that he was like pretty bad, but then she started to get better and he was declining and not like following what he was supposed to follow. So that way, like the person that they made look at like, oh, heroin, it's like so bad. It's so, and it is, don't get me wrong, but that everybody always glamorizes, like you don't see a billboard of heroin, you see a billboard of alcohol, and you're like, oh, well, this stuff that's legal and on billboards and sold in grocery stores and gas stations is just as dangerous as somebody who is using other substances.
Yeah, Hollywood in that regard, I think, correct me if you think I'm wrong, has it almost the same way most of the mainstream public does when it comes to substance abuse issues. They think you can separate them.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just this, or it's only that, or it's all the same thing. It's all the same. It's all the same problem. So without going into the weeds on what happens to him with this investigation and how it turns out, there is the character of John Goodman, who you tell me how you felt. The moment he arrives in the story, I think the whole thing begins to wobble because I found him to be a completely ridiculous character and a dangerous one in terms of what we're talking about. Do you feel that way, Grace?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is like, and again, it kind of like puts two people on a different pedestal. Like here's somebody who is like a professional guy, right? So they're looking at it like that way. I know for sure that I never had somebody like just, oh, on the phone come in and bring like a suitcase of like anything that I ever wanted and like, oh, it's going to be great. Like that would have been great at the time, I'm sure, but like that's just not reality. So it's just something to, you know, cause a little bit of maybe humor, I think maybe is what they were doing, like a little bit of humor, because in my opinion, I've never been on that side of it. Like I was a homeless heroin addict, you know, so I was never, oh, I was a successful business, you know, person in addiction. So I don't know that side of it. I'm sure maybe that's how it is for like famous people or whatever, but that's just not how it is in real life.
Mag, just to paint a brief picture, Goodman, who is a large man, shows up in, you know, I'm remembering this vaguely, you know, the Hawaiian shirt, the cargo pants, boots, and a satchel full of every drug on earth.
Yeah.
His role in this is to get his client, Denzel and friend, in sufficient shape to face the FAA examination that he's about to think. How do you, again, from the Maven's unique point of view, how does it resonate with you that this guy shows up with drugs?
Yeah, it was also not the way that I had that same with Grace. Like it was not my experience.
You didn't have a go-to guy like that.
We were waiting for people in the car for hours and hours. Like we were on other people's time. They weren't on our time.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I also was thinking too of like there was an intervention episode I saw one time before I really understood what addiction was. And they were like, will you go to treatment? And she was like, oh, well, I need to drink to make the decision. And I remember being like, and sure enough, as you're watching it and you're watching her like take this first, second, and third drink, she's becoming significantly more normal as she's drinking. So like I get the concept, and kind of like how Grace said in the beginning, like he probably needed the drink to, you know, to fly the plane, whatever. But it truly is a brain disease, and like it's almost, and your brain is lacking that serotonin that those drugs are going to give that boost. You know, back to you.
You hit it. You guys are hitting it right on the head. I mean,
you don't see that. You don't see that like Euphoria didn't show any of that, but they did a good job at that.
Yeah, I agree. The premise, the plane is going to crash. We've got to rely upon this guy, you know, a problem drinker or not.
Right.
And his position when it's all over is, well, as we said earlier, I landed the plane. And that, you know, one more hit, one more drink, and then I'll go to rehab is pretty common, right? I mean, how many times did you say that, Grace?
Every time.
You know, I always tell people when I work with you guys from retreat, you know, retreat will come, and if you can't get to, you want to go to treatment, you can't get there under your own power within a certain radius, and it's a big radius, they'll put a guy in a car and come get you. Well, the drivers that I've interviewed for retreat, it occurred to me in 10 minutes, they may be the most important link in the process of getting treatment, because they got you in the back of the car and you don't want to go.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard those stories about pull over, one drink, then I'll go the rest of the way with you. And these guys, most of them have, are in recovery. Yeah, no, I don't think so, pal. Let's just keep going. We're almost there. So yeah, you've got that. I agree with you. I think they did a decent job in that. Anyway, it's a wildly entertaining picture, and it's Denzel Washington, the greatest star of his generation. So there's not much to kick about. And even under the influence of Hollywood drug addiction, Kelly Riley ain't hard to look at. John Goodman's a joke. So as the Mavens are here to focus on that issue that we want to focus on when we do our reviews, and that's how well, at the end of the day, does the movie Flight depict substance abuse and then whatever treatment went on. We haven't even established whether you guys want to give it a grade or a 1 to 10. So I leave it to you. You want to give it an A, B, C, D, or F? Whatever you want to do to tell us how well did Flight get that done.
Grace, you want to go first?
Well, yeah, something that I like to mention also about this movie that I didn't get to touch on is the fact that he was in for it, and he knew there was stuff going on, and he was trying and looking at it, this one bottle of vodka, and didn't was like kind of fighting back and forth with it in his head. And he starts walking by and you're like, oh, he's not going to drink it. And all of a sudden you see his hand grasps this bottle. And it's just like it's just like Maggie was saying with the brain disease, like it's just the power of alcoholism and addiction that like no matter what, he was trying to walk by it and it just wasn't happening. He was grabbing that bottle. I think that minus the John Goodman situation, minus like maybe totally flying the plane upside down and like just like a couple other things, I give it like a solid B+. You know, just because I think that they do, you know, there is like real life events in it. And like Maggie was saying, like you can see progression, you can see things that have like fallen apart and all that. So if you haven't seen it, I think it's absolutely worth your time to see, make your own conclusions on it. But I would say I give it a high B.
Meg?
Yeah, when you asked what we were going to grade it, it came to mind an 8 out of 10. I would say an 8 out of 10. I think is
pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, this thing works on a couple of levels. If you like Denzel Washington and you like edge of your seat movie making, this picture is good. And if you're struggling with alcohol problems or substance abuse problems, pay attention. They get a lot of it right. Yeah. And as both the Mavens said, just forget about Goodman. I don't know what the hell he's doing in this movie, to tell you. Listen, the Movie Mavens have a couple of their past reviews up on the Behavioral Corner site. They're up there. It's like a library. Please go look at behavioralcorner.com for our other shows as well. But go back and take a look at some of the other things the ladies have reviewed. We got a lot of reaction when they did Euphoria, which was wildly popular, but not so much here. So take a look at those. And, we'll have the ladies back again soon. Maggie Hunt, Gray Shober from Retreat Behavioral Health, our Movie Mavens. This is the most fun I have, No, this is the most fun. I love movies and I love talking to you two about them. So thanks again, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time. Don't forget, follow us and do all that stuff on Facebook and like us and check out the website for the previous Movie Maven reviews.
Retreat Behavioral Health has proudly been serving the community for over 10 years. Here at Retreat, we believe in the power of connection and quality care. We offer comprehensive, holistic, and compassionate treatment from industry-leading experts. Call 855-802-6600 or visit us at www.retreatbehavioralhealth.com to begin your journey today.
That's it for now. And make us a habit, hanging out at the Behavioral Corner. And when we're not hanging, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter on the Behavioral Corner.